Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. On today's episode, we welcome Max Sorensen, Senior Vice President of Operations at Caliber Collision. Max has a very similar background to me, and his rise through the ranks in the collision business has been nothing short of remarkable. We're going to talk about changes he's seen over the years with some of the programs he's put in place to ensure Caliber Collision continues adapting to the changing needs of the next generation. Welcome to the show, Max.
Hey, Jay, thanks for having me, man. I'm grateful to be here.
How is everything in the Caliber world?
You know, it's great. I can't complain. I live up in the Philadelphia market, and I've been with Caliber for a little bit now, going on 6 years, but we've grown quite a bit, and it's been a fun ride for sure. It's been fun and continuing to grow. So as the company grows, I grow.
Yeah, I would say we talked about your background in our intro call, and I couldn't help but, and I said this in the intro, I couldn't help but see the parallels between your path and my path in terms of how we grew up in the industry. But share with the audience how you got into the industry.
Sure. Yeah. So my dad's a transmission mechanic by trade, and he ended up leaving a company called Cotman Transmissions when I was in first grade. Started his own company. It was a 1.5 bays little, trans shop. And he grew that business quite a bit. And, I was probably about 8, 9 years old and started working in the shop and speed handling trans pans off and getting soaked with trans fluid and all that fun stuff. But, so I grew up in automotive is the bottom line. And after school, it was kind of, what do you want to do? And I had that background. I was always into dirt bikes and go-karts and all that fun stuff. And it just seemed right that I would get into something with auto. And didn't really want to work with my dad, to be honest with you. So I just got a job at a shop, a local small multi-shop organization called Goninen Auto Body. And I just started washing cars. That was it. It was like, hey, do you want to work? Okay, go wash cars. And that's literally, how it went. And I started working that day. Like there was no like, hey, start Monday. It was like, let's go ahead. There's 3 cars back there. And, next thing I knew, I just saw opportunity. It was like when I wasn't washing a car, I was sweeping. And when I wasn't sweeping, I was helping take a bumper off. And, opportunities just started happening. And I guess it was recognized that, hey, this guy really does want to work. And, so some people wanted me to help with other parts of the business. It was body shop help. Then it was a little bit of prep. And then it was we needed a parts manager. So went into parts, learned that part of the business, realized that the estimators weren't necessarily doing the best job. So I had to clean up some of the part issues that were happening. And again, just got recognized as, look, he wants to work. And at the end of the day, that will was what pushed me along and pushed me into a next level position, which became estimator. And then ultimately ran a shop for Goninen. So it was fun. And it seemed like it happened really quick. It was probably over 5 years. Or so, but it happened pretty quick, considering I started when I was pretty young. So I was running the shop. I think I was 24, 25 years old at the time, running the shop for Goninen.
Well, and I want to get into the Caliber side, but before we do that, I do have to ask about those early days of you're graduating. You kind of want to stay in the industry, but you're not sure you want to work for your dad. I was in that same boat. I actually came back and worked for my dad. And I've over the years in business learned from some families that have businesses that actually force their kids to go work at other places before they'll allow them to come back and work for them. And I think that's the smartest thing in the world to do, because I came back immediately after school, started working for my dad, and his service manager and I don't know. I was never able to get on the same page as him. And it was one of those things where, looking back, I think maybe one of the best things you did was just leave, right? Like go somewhere else, see that there are different ways that shops are run, see different people in general. I think that's a really smart move on your part early on in your career.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because I don't think that was my dad's plan for me necessarily, but it was what it was. And, for me at the time, it was just, I want to go do something and not be attached to what my dad's doing, because my dad was hot and heavy in the business at that time. My brother actually now runs his shop, and he's pretty much
Oh,
retired, my
cool.
father, which is cool. But by the time my brother's 8 years younger than me, so by the time he came, of age to go into the workforce, my dad was fading away. So the timing was better for him. But if I started right out of school, it would have been back and forth all day, every day. And then he would have told me what I owed my mom from what she bought me earlier in the week. And I wasn't getting paid. And there would have been a whole bunch of stuff attached to my working with my dad. So it was definitely the right decision for me.
Was this shop outside of Philly then, or where was it?
Yeah. So it's right outside of Philadelphia by the Philadelphia airport. Actually, it's still an operating business. They specialize in truck, heavy transmission work. They do, regular vehicles as well. But that was his kind of niche when he started in the business, was being able to take on some bigger fleets and stuff. And they do a really good job. They do. They're still operating.
It is so cool, and I think what you learn when you're a kid in this business is something that for me anyway has translated for the rest of my career, right? And I kind of go back to the story that I'll never forget answering. And we had a similar shop when we first started off. It was a 2-bay shop, and my dad just worked a million hours a week because we didn't have money to pay anybody. And I was answering the phone during the summers and after school. And I remember answering the phone. My mom had called, and I answered the phone, just said hello. And I've never been yelled at worse in my life because I answered the phone hello, and that has stuck with me forever.
There's a way to answer it, and that wasn't it.
That wasn't it.
She was letting you know it. But yeah, it's kind of same story. My dad, he really wasn't around when I was a kid because he was building a business. And prior to him leaving Cotman, he was doing side work after his 9 to 5, so I really did not see my dad unless I was at the shop. So it was cool for me to go to the shop because I get to hang with my dad, and even though I was working, I was hanging with my dad, and it was like, father-son time, and we were getting things done and moving things along. And that was cool. So, yeah, I'm grateful for that experience for sure. And it definitely set the foundation for me in the auto, industry, which I'm grateful every day for.
Well, now let's talk about that transition, right? You've now gone to the collision side, and you are starting to kind of work your way through the ranks. After you're leading that store, what happens next?
So became a general manager at Goninen, and I was running our highest revenue location at the time, and we had a couple other stores. We were actually opening a brownfield, and we had a store that was in Center City, Philadelphia, that was struggling a little bit. So I was involved kind of towards the end of the Goninen days. I was involved with the store I was operating. I was supporting another store and helping open and staff a brownfield. So this is right around 2014, 2015. And then Abra came along, and Abra acquired Goninen. So at the time we had 11 stores. Abra comes along, and they said, look, we had a VP and an owner and all that. They said, look, typically with 11 stores, we'll have 2 district managers, we call them, which is like, you oversee a couple of centers. So the VP took a few of the centers, and then I took the other centers. And then our owner kind of sailed off and did something different. The VP became the market VP. And then I ended up taking over like 14 centers. We started growing. We bought another company called Collision Max, which was over on the New Jersey side. And we became quickly like 35 centers in a matter of like 14 months. So it all happened so quick.
Wow.
It was private equity backed. So, they moved quick. And, next thing I knew, we had a couple of states. We were already in Delaware. We were in Jersey. We acquired in Maryland, Pennsylvania. So it just, like I said, it was like hanging on to the rocket ship for a little bit. But, it's been a fun ride. And then I was promoted to market vice president. And then ultimately, Abra decided to split the country into 3. It was East, West, Central. I obviously lived on the East Coast. So I got the East, which was Georgia all the way up through, to basically the North Jersey market. And once 2019 comes along, we merged with Caliber. I'm a senior vice president at that time, and they had their senior vice president. So we redrew up the lines of the country. And I'm still a senior vice president, but I just have 3 times the geographic area and store count than I did back in 2019. So, but again, it's been fun, and the amount of people and incredible stories that are out there from the journey. It's really cool, I like to kind of say we're in a way a collection of acquisitions, right? We have a lot of people that came along through a different journey through their acquisition, and we're one big family, and it's I kind of feel like the industry is that a little bit too, especially coming off of
Yeah.
being at SEMA last week. But it's fun. It's definitely cool to be a part of.
It's funny you say that. I'm actually in the midst of writing an article for Auto Body News, and I think I start the article off by saying going to SEMA, and we're on the Apex side as well, is almost like a family reunion when you go there. It's just like you see everybody you know, and you probably
Exactly.
hadn't seen for a year up
It's
until
so
that
cool.
point. So yeah, yeah.
It really is. Like I give the example. I was, you're standing at a craps table or at the bar, and you look over, and it's your biggest competitor, or it's your biggest client. But either way, it's all love. Like everybody's there, just having a good time, and it's great, man. It's really a fun time.
Yeah, and it's just the shared passion, and in my conversations with you, that passion comes through, and I think it's evident that you grew up in the industry. And I have to imagine going back in your life to when you're first starting off in that first collision shop and you're taking off bumpers. You don't really think or put together the pieces of how you go from there to where you're at now, right? Like it's not one of those things where you're like, oh,
Um,
that's automatically going to be my path.
Honestly, never in my wildest dreams. I got to be honest with you. To be straightforward, like billions of dollars now, and it's wild. To come from a shop that I was buffing, and then moving into management and seeing a completely different side of the business part of the industry, and learning a P&L and all these things that occurred over the years that you look back and you're just like, wow, what a journey. And it's like I keep saying, it's just great to be a part of, because there's so much opportunity in this industry, and still today, that the people that are entering today, washing cars or entering an apprentice program, are going to be the people that are running this thing, in years to come. So it's really cool. I'm really grateful.
That is probably the singular reason I love doing the podcast so much, is because I talk a lot about, and I think a lot of people in our industry talk about this, but the need to share stories of folks that have been really successful in this business. And I especially love the ones that started off like you did, where you worked your way through the industry. And the more we can share those stories, I mean, it's easy to say, hey, we've got a lot of career progression in this business. We've got a lot of opportunity. But if somebody doesn't see that somebody else has done that, it's hard to really explain it. And that, being able to tell somebody like your story is phenomenal. That's what our industry needs more of, is highlighting the people that have done really, really well, to paint that picture to that young person that's out there that, hey, this is possible. If you get into this industry and you work your tail off, the
That's it.
sky's the limit.
That's it. It's the willingness to work is what it is. And you can see it, when you walk through a facility, you can see the people that are there that are willing to do it. And they're the ones that are going to be moving up quick, because we need good people. At the end of the day, every shop needs good people. And it's the ones that are willing to work that they advance quickly, because there's a need, there's a deficit, let's call it, for that. And the ones that are willing to work are the ones that get there. I always say an ounce of will outweighs a pound of skill, because that skill could be great, but if you're not willing to put the time, effort, and energy in, then it's just wasted talent.
Oh, couldn't agree more. I do want to talk about maybe how things have changed over the years, and this is kind of the point of conversation today. But you've now been in the industry for quite a long time, and I was just talking to somebody about this earlier today, in that when we grew up in the industry, it was very much a I learned the hard way, so you need to learn the hard way type of atmosphere, right? And I think that was pretty
Absolutely.
common amongst all shops. And over the years, and I think the more we've struggled to find and retain really good talent in our industry, I do feel like we're seeing a shift in shop culture as we're kind of moving forward. Over your years in the industry, how different is it from when you first started off?
Well, again, it's kind of, everybody calls it like the school of the hard knocks, right? Like you're there and you're learning by doing, and there's nobody really taking the time to slow down and really teach you. It's just, hey, do this because I said so, or do this because I need you to do that real quick. And you pick things up, but there's no structure. There was, never really felt like there was any structure. And, I know we're here talking about an apprentice program that Caliber's that running. But prior to that, there was still a lot of that where every shop was doing some type of technical training in some way. It just wasn't structured at all, and there was no oversight. And it wasn't until for us at Caliber we decided to come together and say, this is it. This is the standard, and we're going to all follow this plan, that it became a thing. And then once it became a thing, now there's no stopping it, because it's a train that's rolling that we couldn't stop it if we tried, which is pretty awesome, because it's good people coming together for the common good of the industry and for those around them, which at the end of the day, when you have that going on, that's the culture you're talking about that's been built. And, it's not just Caliber, we're seeing it across the industry now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's needed. We need everybody to be on the same page here and developing that next generation of talent. Walk us through this apprenticeship program a little bit. I've done
Sure.
a little bit of research on it. I'm very, very impressed with what you've put together and the structure behind it. But tell us a little bit about it in general.
Sure. So it's a paid apprenticeship. It's competency based, not time based, and that's really important. When we first dipped our toe into putting an apprenticeship together, we didn't realize that was the way to go. A lot of it was, hey, all right, it's 12 months apprenticeship, and then when you're done, you take your test or whatever, and you go out in the shop. Well, we realized that people come in with more skills than others, and people progress faster or slower than others. So it's really competency based. So there's 13 competencies. Each competency has 5 lessons within that competency. It starts with safety. It goes down the line: plastic repair, body filler, disassembly, reassembly, all the way through welding on panels. There are 65 ICAR classes that need to be taken during the process. You come out of pro level 1 non-structural ICAR certified, ICAR weld certified, AC certified, and then obviously you're a graduate from the TAP program, and you're offered a job at Caliber in one of our facilities that's local to you. And recently we added that at 90 days you get a set of tools, Snap-on Blue Point tools, $1,800 value that the teammates get to keep kind of regardless of what happens throughout the rest of the program, which is pretty incredible. That's a new piece of it. There's 2 models of the program. So the first model we call the one-on-one. The one-on-one is a technician takes on an apprentice. They work together. The technician's paid flat rate like they normally would be. They don't pay the apprentice for 60 days. The company picks up that cost. And then at the 60-day mark, they become a tech team. And then they progress through the 13 competencies. Once they're completed and the person graduates, that technician is awarded a bonus. So the mentor is awarded a bonus at the end of that.
That's cool.
Every technician that they graduate after that bonus increases, which is pretty incredible. Some mentors take on more than one apprentice at a time in the one-on-one, which becomes very, very lucrative for them if they're able to maintain, producing labor hours and training and graduating folks. It's we've seen some pretty incredible things. Then the other model of the program is what we call the hub model. The hub model, any tech could become a hub mentor. It's more geared toward the aging technician, the one that, is maybe getting up there in the years in the industry, has a ton of knowledge, ton of understanding of the business and technical skills, quality's tip top, but maybe is slowing down a little bit in their career. And what we do is we surround that person with that mentor with 4 to 6 apprentices. So they're more or less in a training model where they're not really working to hustle to make hours and teach that side of the business. Instead, it's a slow down and really methodically teach the apprentices, the quality and the way to do the work, but not on an individual level amongst a team of, 5 or 6 apprentices. So that model's been really successful as well. And it's really that piece of it has extended some of the mentors, it's extended their careers, and it gives them, kind of a new purpose, right? to wake up in the morning to say, like, I'm not just here to fix cars, which I've been doing for 35 years. Now I'm fixing cars and cultivating another human being, which
Yeah.
it changes the level of, their purpose and what they're doing. And they become a leader, which some of these folks, have never been in a leadership position before, as they've been fixing cars for many, many years. So it's really, really been cool. There's been so many transformations that have happened out there. And look, we have a lot of apprentices, we have a lot of graduates, and each one of them has an individual story that, if you dig into some of these stories, they are incredible. I love hearing and being part of the stories and the mentors as well. It's really changed a lot of lives.
What I absolutely just adore about that story is something that I think is a key component to success for our industry moving forward, which is, how do we get our experienced techs, our best and brightest, to speak glowingly about our industry? How do we get them to say, yes, you should come into this industry, rather than going out to the social forums and seeing some of the experienced techs say, this industry is terrible, don't come into it. Some of them have valid reasons. There's still bad shops out there. There's still people that don't treat their people well. But there are there's this negative narrative that sometimes I don't think is fair to the industry either. This industry has produced a lot of very, very successful people, a lot of really success, like the success stories that come out of all of this are amazing. But what you're doing is giving that experienced or older technician a path to be able to continually use their skills. And we talk a lot about career development here at WrenchWay. One of the things that I always say is, we think it's important to that technician that's just starting out, or that person that just got out of tech school. But if I'm 55 years old, I think I care about my next 10 years a lot more than anybody else, right? I want to know how I'm going to get to the finish line.
Sure.
And our industry has not traditionally done a great job at providing that path.
That's right. And that's the one piece that we've seen that was, I guess, unexpected of this, right? Where we saw guys put their hand up and say, I want to do this, I think. And we pay them differently. So they're paid as an hourly technician. So what we do is we back into their last 6 months of, their pay, and we say, look, you're not going to go backwards, right? But you're going to have a different approach here. And the expectation is obviously that we're still producing as a tech team, but it's more that you're producing talent, right, for the future, and creating a culture that these folks want to stick around and be part of a team, afterwards, which has been really great. And I want to say this, believe it or not, 5% of our apprentices are female, which is another incredible shift that we're seeing right now, which I love because they do a great job. I got to be honest with you, they dot the I's and cross the T's on everything. And I look at it and go, wow, man, quality wise, it's incredible what we're seeing out of some of these female apprentices and now female graduates that are full blown technicians producing right next to, any other tech that, you can put them up against. They're holding their own plus. It's incredible. Yeah. So super proud of that for sure.
How do we, especially on the collision business, I feel like there's such an opportunity there to appeal to that young female, right? And be able to show them the opportunities. And I mean, we both just got back from SEMA. You see the amount of talented females at SEMA that are doing some incredible stuff on the collision side of the business. How do we share those stories? How do we get them out in front of people? Because those are pretty incredible in themselves.
I agree. And look, I think it's that artisan piece where truly when you boil it all down, we get into this business because we like cars or we want to fix something or what have you. But when you think about the art of it, I mean, that's where I think if we can, I don't want to say sell that side of it, but that's where if we can connect to that side of it, that's where you'll see, I think, a lot of females step in and say, you know what, there's something here. And watching a vehicle go from, current state to restoration, that's an art. And then standing next to that and being proud of the product, that's pretty special. So I think just connecting those dots and bringing the female population along to show them the opportunities there's something there for sure. And also on the carpet side of the business, the customer service side and doing the estimating and that, again, there's just so much opportunity in this industry, whatever you want to look at from any angle, it's truly special. And I think we don't do a good enough job, and I think we're getting there, but we don't do a good enough job of shouting it from the mountaintops, because it's pretty awesome.
Amen. I could not agree more. And you look at a young person right now, and the more we can sell that vision to a young person that, that car came up as a disaster. It came into our shop and it was not in good shape. And you were able to take it from that to looking like a brand new vehicle. And there aren't, most of your friends can't do what you just did, right? Like
That's
most
right.
people in general can't do what you just did. And you should wear that with a sense of pride, because that takes talent.
100% agree. And it's a unique skill, right? And it's teachable. That's the thing, is that it's teachable, and there's an opportunity out there waiting for you if you so desire. Whether it's with us at Caliber or somewhere else at this point, there's
Yeah.
opportunities out there, and we're just looking to meet the demand, and so yeah, it's special, and I think we're going to see more and more of that. I hope to see that 5% increase to 6, 7, 8 in the next 2 years, and beyond. So I'm excited.
Oh, the potential is there. And I think for years, if not decades, we kind of ignored that side of the human population. And it is kind of an anomaly that, like, half of our population we discounted forever, right? Like it was not
Doesn't make any
something
sense.
that we were trying. And
Right.
now I think you're seeing companies wake up to that. And not only that, I do think we've had others on the podcast before that are very successful female technicians or very successful female business owners. And a lot of times, all it takes is the vision to that person for a young person to look at them and say, hey, there's somebody that's doing it. I can go do that. And the more we can kind of create that avenue, the more I think the less resistance we're going to face from young ladies wanting to come into this industry. So the foundation is there now. Now we've got to build on that part.
That's it. Just keep building on it, and showcasing the examples. To your point, that's it. I think that's where we'll get the rubber to meet the road. So
the Bureau of Labor Statistics says technicians make around $46,000 a year. Does that sound like BS to you? We thought so too. At WrenchWay, we work with some of the best shops and dealerships across the country, and we've seen technicians make a lot more than that. So we decided to gather our own data. We're excited to announce the launch of our new online technician pay tool. You can now search technician pay by industry, shop type, location, and experience. We've already had over 3,000 technicians submit their pay data anonymously. You can explore the pay data and even submit your own data anonymously at wrenchway.com/pay. Thank you for your continuous support of WrenchWay as we strive to promote and improve automotive and diesel careers. We couldn't do it without you. At what point in your career did it click that we needed more structure around an apprenticeship program, or that we needed a better way to develop young people?
yeah, it's funny. We've dabbled in it, right? Even all the way back to Keenan Auto Body, we were working in going into the high schools and pitching what we had to offer, and we had a version of some type of program. And then when we morphed it into Abra, we had a mini version of this program. It was really not until probably coming out of COVID when we said, okay, look, we know that the technician shortage is real and it's getting worse. The gap is widening as the average age of technicians increases. Not enough folks are coming into the industry. We need to do something about this. So we kind of got in a room at Caliber and we said, okay, there's a lot of really unique and cool training pieces going on company wide. Again, we're a collection of acquisitions. So there's a million really good ideas and there's really good things happening, but it's all sporadic. We finally said, okay, let's get everything under one umbrella. Then let's put some resources behind it. That was the key. We had no resources that were, I call it federalized, right? Like we said, okay, we're going to federalize this plan. And then we're going to go out and we're going to all get behind lock arms and go do it. So I would say mid 2021 probably was when we federalized. And then we hired a bunch of folks into the TAP umbrella. And 2022, it just took off. I mean, it was like we couldn't, again, like I keep saying, like we couldn't stop it if we tried. Everybody got excited. It became part of our culture. And it was like, techs were excited, apprentices were excited. We were bringing people from other positions within the shop and putting them through the program. And the success stories started stacking up. It was really awesome. And now, we're 1,850 apprentices and approaching 2,000 graduates. And the stories are just, they're amazing. So yeah, that's over the course of 2.5-ish, approaching 3 years now.
What did you learn during that process? Because I assume when you're putting together a program of that scale, never stop, right?
Yeah, we actually we have a steering committee that meets every 2 weeks, and we review all the data points and how we're tracking and how it's going, and looking at everything from the first 90 days to postgraduate to the labor hours produced. There's a lot of data points. We're looking at all of it. We're also looking at the pre-hire stuff to see like who fares how coming into the apprenticeship program. Not to say that we're going to do an assessment and you don't make it in, but how did you score, and then how did you fare within the program and then beyond, right? So there's a lot of data that we have. Again, this is part of that resources that we really needed back in 21 that we finally got behind, and now it's been a real blessing because we have visibility to all that stuff, and it's been pretty special.
You hit on something that I think is really key right there, which is, for the longest time, I feel like if there was a young person that showed any amount of interest in our industry, we would say, come on down, come on in, come in. And now it feels like you're getting to the point where you're refining that a little bit to where you are really identifying that young person that you want to come in, or that you feel is going to be successful. And, I say this a lot, in that even if you talk to somebody and they're not a fit for either your company or for this industry, you could be doing that young person a huge favor by saying, hey, listen, this probably isn't the right industry for you. So rather than come in and spend a bunch of money on tools and schooling and all of this stuff that's going to be expensive, find what you like to do. And that's okay, because then you're not going to go down the route of trying to learn this business for 2 years and then not having it not work out. Where we can get a little bit more defined with that young person and really be honest with them about what our industry is. I think for a long time, maybe we were, I don't want to say we're over promising as an industry, but like you'd often hear like, oh, everything's cleaned up and it's not dirty anymore. And you're like, well, there's still aspects that are dirty. Like there's still areas where you're going to be dirty, but like the more we can be honest with a young person about what our industry is, and then also find the right people for our industry, the common phrase of we'll take anybody that can fog a mirror. Like you're like, no, let's get into this a little bit more and try to find the right person. Yeah.
Let's be better than that. Right. So what I would say about that is our constraint is having enough mentors. We don't have enough folks that are willing and capable of that cultivation, right? So a better apprentice candidate is going to become a better apprentice, which is going to work better with our mentor, which is going to create that connectivity and longevity for both the mentor as well as the apprentice and apprentice graduate, right? Because the worst thing we can do is bring someone in, get them through the program, and lose them to some other industry, right? Like we've just wasted all the resources, all the time, energy, money, all of it. Or we bring in an apprentice and he doesn't click, it's not working with the mentor, and then we lose the mentor for any future potential of, growing additional talent and cultivating other human beings. So that's really the biggest key to that, is like, we want to make sure that, yes, you're able to do this. We think that this will work for you. But it's also the mentor piece, because that's really the constraint. And I would venture to say that any company that's out there doing this right now would say the same.
I think that's where I can feel your ability to see the macro, right? Rather than, I think a lot of folks in our industry will just go for that immediate win. Like, we need a technician right now. Let's go find that technician right now. But when you take a step back and you look at the industry as a whole, we need our industry to be healthy. We need shops to have their shops full of technicians, whether it's our competitor or not. Like we need,
That's right.
we need people. And the more we can kind of remove ourselves from that immediate, like, okay, we found that one tech, now we're good. Oh, now somebody else left. Now we got to chase our tail again. And really just try to attack the core of the industry, which is what you just talked about right there. We lack proper mentors. We lack, even on the education side, there are a large number of high school programs, high school collision programs that are shutting down, high school automotive repair, diesel, whatever it is, that aren't getting the proper funding they need, that aren't getting what they need to run viable programs. And, we're kind of cutting ourselves off at the legs there when we don't have educators and mentors in our shops to be able to really grow these young people.
For sure. And to your point about the high schools, like anyone that can get into a high school to help support the collision repair or even just the automotive in general programs is helping, right? Because they need resources. I know there's the Collision Repair Education Foundation out there, and they do a really good job
great people.
of staying connected with the shops to the schools. But the more we can do and promote there, the better, for sure. For sure. You had mentioned something, about kind of seeing the macro. I think Tech Force, they said, I think last year, 2023, there was a 30,000 technician shortage. And as the next couple of years continue with the age of the tech increasing, they expect that, and this is estimates, but they expect that to triple or even quadruple, right? So if Caliber is producing, is graduating 2,000 folks, that's a fraction of what the real need is. That might help us, right, with our need potentially to meet the demand, but it certainly isn't meeting the demand of the industry. And as cars become more complex, it's becoming more, of a challenge, to get people that are able to and willing to get into this industry and be productive members, so the more we can shout it out, I know I keep saying it, but the more we can shout it out, the better.
It's true.
We need folks.
It's true. And I talk about changing in the industry over the years. I remember growing up in the business, and I'm not sure if this was your experience, but when I was growing up, it was against the rules to take a tech from your neighboring shop. Like we just didn't do it. And when everybody got desperate, when we got desperate as an industry, everything went out all rules went away, right? Like it was just
gloves off,
wild west. Yeah.
It got dirty for a little bit, and it still kind of is. I think we've done a better job with that over the last couple because of this, right? Because another thing we found when we launched this program is the mentors that did sign up, our retention increased tremendously. They wanted to stick around because they were doing more than just fixing a car for a dollar amount. It was, yes, I'm fixing a car. I'm also working with someone that I'm helping because somebody helped me along the way. And now it becomes more than just fixing a car. And that was super insightful for us. We weren't expecting it, right? We were like, oh my God, look at this number. This is great. This is just kind of like cream on top or cherry on top. And, that helped with retention, which ultimately helped with the people, wanting to take on a sign-on bonus to go somewhere else, or the crazy offers that were getting thrown around, which, we still hear about here and there. I don't think they're as prevalent as they were maybe in 21 and even 22.
But you're giving them that carrot too, right? If you're a mentor, it's not just adding another responsibility to their already busy plate. You're essentially adjusting their role in general and what their responsibility is, and then incentivizing them for keeping somebody in-house. And I just think for a long time, our industry would ask and just keep asking for our best to do more and more and more without necessarily being compensated for it. What I love about your system is that you're taking care of those people that are growing that next generation.
That's right. And we're actually right now in the midst of launching a lot of additional leadership style training for our mentors, like outside industry stuff and inside industry stuff. But we're just leveling them up because, again, they're more than just people out there fixing cars. They're working with another person, and they become, in a way, a manager, so making them better people to produce better with what they're looking to do, every day when they wake up. So it's pretty awesome. It's pretty cool to see some of the transformations of, I don't want to say the old guy in the back of the shop, but the guys that are rough, that all of a sudden they change their tune a little bit, and it's been fun to watch, fun to be a part of for sure.
For those experienced technicians that are listening to this, regardless if you're in the repair side, the collision side, diesel side, doesn't matter. What I'll tell you is I think a lot of you don't understand the impact that you have on young people in your shop. And in a lot of cases, for a lot of us that grew up in the industry, when we came into a shop, yeah, you got your manager, you've got maybe a GM of a store. But for me, in my experience, it was always that really good tech in the shop that was kind of the alpha that I looked up to, and that was the person, right? Like regardless of who was signing my paycheck, I always looked up to that person. And so for you experienced techs that are listening to this, you're not just going in and punching the clock every day. You are having an impact on young people, and you're doing some legacy type stuff. Like people will remember you for generations if you do this well.
Man, that's perfectly said. Because I think back of when I was on the shop floor and a guy named Yoon Han was his name.
Shout out Uni.
Yeah, one day I hope he can never listen to this. But he was the one. He was like the guy, right? If you needed something done or there was something that was out of whack, it was, all right, let's ask Uni. And he was the one that I started working with and kind of pulled me into the shop floor. And I learned so much in such a short amount of time, and it was awesome. So I owe him a lot. But to your point, right, I'll never forget that man. And he's part of the legacy, for me and obviously for himself. So to your point, whether you're an official mentor or not, you are mentoring out there every day, and especially with the young guys and girls that are coming in. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, a lot of eyes on that senior level technician that's in the shop. Now, as we look to the future, and obviously Caliber is a great, great company. The growth has been incredible in general. How do you see the industry moving, right? Are we moving in the right direction as it relates to how we attract new talent and keep new talent or keep older talent, right? As an industry, do you feel like we're moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think the last few years in particular, I don't necessarily know why the shift, but I think in the last few years, I think as some of the MSOs have become more sophisticated and bigger in scale and size, I think the need is so real for them and us, right, that we don't have a choice. So I think that forced things to happen that probably should have happened 10 years ago, right, 15 years ago even. But now it's happening. That's the good news. So I think now that it's happening and we're watching each other and watching the moves being made and continuing to evolve in what we're doing, I think it's only going to get better from here. I had mentioned prior, we've also launched a service advisor program. So now we're really bringing people in from, both sides and offering from scratch an opportunity to create a career. So at least in my career, there's been no company that's done that, at least to the scale that we are now. I think everybody's had a mini program here and there, but I mean, we're going to have over 1,000 graduates this year in TAP, and we'll have a few hundred graduates in the service advisor program, and we're just getting started, right?
Oh
So I think from a sophistication side and commitment to resources, that's really the other thing that I think some of the MSOs have committed to the resources. But even in the single shop operators, like it's real that there's a need for talent, and going and paying for that from somebody that's been in the industry for a long time. A lot of times today, it isn't worth that. It's better to bring someone in and grow the talent. That's part of your culture and part of your organization. From, it was said to me the other day, like, we're bringing people in with their cup empty. So we're able to fill that cup now instead of having a cup half full or 3/4 full and trying to take out all what's in there and fill it back up with the right stuff,
That's a good visual.
That became, more evident with the service advisor program, because some of our 6-week tenure brand new service advisors are doing a better job than our tenure service advisors, because they didn't know what they didn't know. And we're teaching them documentation and the things that are expected of them from scratch. And then that becomes just the way they do it. Whereas we've had service advisors for years that have struggled on some of those things. And, we're creating up trainings in that for them as well. But it's amazing how well some of these brand new folks are doing after just a short amount of time in training. So I think the industry's made a shift, which I'm excited about. And I think, as we continue to evolve and continue to improve on the trainings that are going on out there. And, even ICAR has improved so much,
Yes.
over the last few years. So that as well. I think where we still have opportunity is, you mentioned those schools. I think ensuring that any local school that we can get involved in to keep open or just give whatever resources, whether it's time,
Give them a fighting chance. Yeah.
energy, whatever we can do to help with the schools, because capturing those students at 8th, 9th, 10th grade to pave the way for a potential career in the long term. And then one of us can come in and say, hey, look what we have as an opportunity for you. It doesn't cost anything. They don't have to go spend a bunch of money. It's some of the best stories we've had are from some lower income communities, that people don't have opportunity otherwise. And then they're granted this opportunity. They have the will to work, and all of a sudden their career just takes off and the sky is the limit.
You just need the door opened, right? Like a lot of times that's all it takes.
That's it. They need awareness.
I think everything you're talking about, and what I'll give you and the entire team at Caliber a huge compliment here, which is it takes executive level buy-in to do a program like this. And I think that's where a lot of programs or a lot of businesses fall short, is that you'll have some folks in a business that are very, very passionate about it, but maybe the executive buy-in isn't there. And it does take a reallocation of resources. It does take a really good plan to attack it. And I think when executives buy in, that's when stuff can actually get done, because then you have those resources to be able to go out and attack it rather than kind of fighting from your heels all the time.
100% agree. And again, that continuous improvement as well. Like executives, yes, they're behind it. We're not stopping. We're not, saying that's it. We've done what we've done and that's what we're going to do. We're continuing to evolve and continuing to invest and continuing to improve. Like I said, just this year, we implemented that tool program where that didn't exist before. The hubs are outfitted with toolkits that stay in the hubs. I don't think I mentioned that. No. So when you're in a hub setting, there's 6 apprentices potentially in that hub. We couldn't have the mentor's tools being, depleted by 6 apprentices at one time. So we decided to set it up with, outfitted toolkits. And it also teaches the teammate, the apprentice, to care for those tools. Like they're not their tools. Those tools stay in the hub. But just this year, we implemented at 90 days, whether you're a one-on-one apprentice or a hub apprentice, you get your tool set and they're yours. And that's your foundation to start building your own tool set for the future. So, if you're in the program 14 months, at 90 days, you still have 9-10 months to build your tool set before you graduate, as you're getting paid and whatnot. Be careful on the Snap-on trucks because they're dangerous. But, it's pretty amazing. And then, another thing we do is post-graduation for the apprentice. At 1 year, they get a, retention bonus, if you will, where it's like, that's supposed to be used toward tools. The idea is yes, we want you to stay. We don't have any clawback or any, like, you have to stay at Caliber for so long. It's more of just a carrot of, hey, stick around and there's a little bonus for you.
More good stuff is going to come if you stick around.
Yeah, exactly. We try to keep it positive, not negative. We try to keep it on the positive side. So, but yeah, pretty amazing. So, point to that is that was an investment just made this past year. So, and we'd already launched a program for a couple of years before we decided to do that. So again, executive, getting behind it and continuing to improve is key.
That's really cool. Adapting. And I think it helps with a barrier of entry to our industry, right? Both you and I grew up in the industry. I think we just assumed you bought your own tools when you got to that point. And it is, if you look at other trades and you look at what other businesses do, it is a little mind blowing that we have, oftentimes the lowest paid person with that needs the highest level of investment to get into our industry, right? And so
Man,
little things like that can help a lot for a young person.
I remember the night that my dad will probably watch this and he'll remember this, which we'll laugh about. I remember the night when Uni said, "You're going to be my helper now." I go, "I don't have any tools." So he's like, "All right, well, whatever you got at home, you have some stuff." So I went, me and my dad got like a plastic box, and I just robbed like half his tools out of the garage. And I'm like, "Dad, this is my job, man. I need these tools." And he helped me. He set me up. You know, he gave me like one set of sockets, a ratchet, a couple of screws. Like it was like basic. But I'll never forget that night. And then I went and bought a Mac box, and I had all this debt. And I'm like, what did I do? And you know how that works. I was paying that off for 4 years, I think. And then stopped working on cars completely. Started estimating. Didn't need the tools anymore.
Well, and I think there's a huge opportunity there too, right? Like, how can we better equip our young technicians with financial education to make sure they don't end up in that situation? And I was an idiot when I was younger and would go buy. I use the example. I bought an $80 set of Mac screwdrivers when I was 12 years old.
Huh.
Who in the hell needs like when you're 12 years old, you don't need that.
But you are not stripping any Phillips heads out. Let's just say that.
I wasn't a very good tech, so I'm sure I probably stripped plenty of them. But it is one of those things where, as an industry, the more we can bring that support, and if it's financial education to a young person to make sure they don't get into tool debt that they don't need, or if it's, and by the way, I think that's the reason why a lot of technicians leave, is they're not necessarily unhappy with their job. They just need to make their tool payment, right? So they might end up swapping jobs just to make sure that they can keep paying that. And it becomes this weird kind of, I don't know, snowball effect where you just keep buying tools, and it puts people in a bad position. So that's heartbreaking to me. I want to see our industry do a better job at that in general.
It's funny you bring that up. We're actually, part of this continuous improvement is we're creating like quick 2-minute module videos for our apprentices and our mentors, like quick tip. And that's one of them is just being conscious of, hey, you're making this much, your payments this much, be careful, because we've given you the tool set. You can build on that, but just be careful with, your weekly or monthly spend on that based on your income level. So yeah, that's all stuff that, again, as we continue to improve and evolve, the things that come up, we're listening. And, we've done a round of apprentice surveys and mentor surveys, and then we collect the data, and, we put the common themes together and say, hey, this is a thing. We now need to go shift and maybe make an adjustment here, which is, it's super cool. And it's super cool to be a part of that, because we're listening and making adjustments as we go.
I think that's one of the most common complaints we hear from technicians, is that their employer or their manager isn't listening to them. And so the more we can create that conversation and welcome that feedback, I think the more we can improve as an industry. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is culture. And it's such a buzzword at times, but I always talk about how if you've ever been in a bad culture, like how bad it is and like how much it stinks. But if you're in a great culture, it's like the complete opposite. It's fun to come to work. You like the people you work with. As you're building this program, I have to imagine it has a positive impact on not only Caliber as a whole, but like that individual shop that's out there that started to develop and really look for the right people to come in, has to have had a positive impact.
Oh, 100%. And again, I kind of mentioned earlier, I don't think we could stop TAP if we tried now, because it's created its own culture, right? Of at Caliber, we're a purpose-driven company. It's the purpose is to restore the rhythm of your life, and that could be anything from a client, customer, teammate. But when you connect what we're doing to our purpose, which is what TAP has become, we are restoring the rhythm of mentors' lives, apprentices' lives, vehicle drivers that, especially when the demand was out, through the roof to get cars through the system. Just so many things came out of this that connected to our purpose, which anybody who lives our purpose felt that, and we're like, this is it. And look, at the end of the day, anytime you help someone, no matter what I think you're doing, it makes you feel good, right? And people that feel good want to make other people feel good. And that just snowballs. So at the end of the day, I think from a culture perspective, this was a shot in the arm for Caliber. And look, Caliber is a great culture in general. We always talk about culture because I think every shop has its own culture. It's set by the GM or that key technician, whoever's in there kind of sets that culture. And I think as a macro, we really have a great culture, but as you boil down to the shops, it gets a little mixed up. And I think if nothing else, when Tap's in a shop, it levels the culture up for sure. Just that willingness to help one another.
It's so cool to see that, right? Like a program that you put together, it has such an influence on so many people and
we're
their
proud.
Happiness. Yeah, you should be. I think that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, man. Well, we're grateful and thanks for having me on. This has been awesome. I always say Caliber is like a great American company. Like, we provide a service, which is great, but there's other companies that provide the same service, but the opportunity that is created at Caliber is really what sets us apart. And that's what makes us, what I call a great American company. Man. So
it's phenomenal. One last question. In your video feed, I see, is that an Eagles logo behind you? Are we an Eagles fan here?
Yes, I am. So that's actually the locker room. It's my wife and I standing at the locker room, and it's an Eagles sign, and it says teamwork over our head. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So that's in my office, and I look at it all the time. I'm like, yeah, Eagles, but also like marriage, like my wife and teamwork, I have to remind
that's a good analogy. Yes. That's, I like that. As a Packers fan, still a little bitter because you guys took us to the cleaners right off the bat this year in Brazil. So I think the Eagles have a heck of a team again this year. Always. Yeah.
We picked it up. We're 5-0 in last 5. So it's been fun. And we just beat the Cowboys, which that's amazing every time.
I have to ask, and I think this is a standard question for Philly fans in general. Did you boo Santa?
Yes. There's no. I'm not proud of it. I didn't throw snowballs at him, though. In fairness, I heard that other people did that.
Still, one of my favorite things of all time. I think that was so funny. And all the different cultures. Philly's a tough crowd.
A lot of passion. City of brotherly love.
Well, hopefully we meet in the playoffs this year, and it's a good story for one of us. But you got to stay healthy to get to that point. But I had to point that out. I do want to say thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing for the industry. Thank you for everything you're doing at Caliber. Learning your story and your background has been awesome. And I just, as a person, very, very easy to talk to, and just really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Man, thank you. I can't thank you enough. This has been great. And like I said, any chance we get to shout this from the mountaintops, let's do it. So
we'll do it more. Yeah. We'll get you back on at some point here.
Let's go.
All right. Well, thank you, Max. Max, if somebody wants to find you, how do they find you?
I'm not a big social media guy. I am on LinkedIn, but
right.
My email is max.sorensen, SORENSEN @caliber.com. So you just shoot me an email and be happy to chat.
Sounds great. Thank you, my friend.
All right, man. Thank you. Take care. Appreciate you.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting WrenchWay.com.